Hello everyone, today I'm going to do a tutorial of how I completed that butterfly cake that I did for a baby shower. My client wanted a butterfly princess theme, and this is me completing the whole entire cake. There you saw me filling the cake. It's going to be a tall cake, so every layer I'm going to put aside the cake, and then what I'm doing is I'm using a serrated knife to cut the cake down to one size, down flat. So therefore it'll be balanced. So I'm just cutting off the excess on the top. If you see, like when you bake a cake, it has that little dome shape or so forth. It doesn't come out perfectly flat unless you use baking strips, which I haven't used in years. So what I'm doing here, I'm just filling the cake, and then I'm icing around the side, around the edges. Usually I do that at the end. However, for this cake, because it was going to be so tall, it ended up being 7 inches tall. It's a 10-inch cake. So that's why you see me, every time that I'm filling a layer, I do the edges, because it's just easier for me instead of doing it all at one time. Also, it shows me, when I have the bottom part frosted around the edges, I'm able to line it up evenly and perfectly. So there, it's fully crumb coated. 10 layers of cake, by the way. The other cake is an 8-inch round cake, and that wasn't as tall because that's what the design called for. And I did frost that off camera. You see me here. I'm just leveling off this cake flat as possible. Usually I will use a tool for that. I don't know. Sometimes I do, sometimes I just eyeball it. Most times I eyeball it and I know that it is level, because I've had years of experience of doing it. Now I'm just going back over the cake with more frosting. The first one was a crumb coat, which a crumb coat sounds exactly like what it is. You're coating all the crumbs, you're sealing all the crumbs in, and then you put it to chill and then take it back out and do another coat of frosting. I see some people just continue to do coats and coats, but I prefer to chill my cake in between. It makes it easier. So what you see me doing here, I'm filling in the little spots that I might see with frosting, and I'm putting it back in the fridge to chill while it's chilling. I did the same for this. I leveled it. If you see, it's not like, you know, uneven. It's very even, and I am doing another coat of frosting on this as well. For this one, I chilled it and then I took it back out of the fridge. And now I am going to smoothen it out. And I smoothen it out by using the hot water method, which you just use hot water. And if you saw before, I had a scraper. The scraper doesn't work so great for me. See a lot of people using it. My spatula works the best to me. I'm used to it. Here you see me using a paper towel to pat it down. And that's just to take off the excess water droplets. I saw this acrylic scraper, a lot of people using it, so I decided to buy it. And also, it didn't work out for me. Anybody have some tips or whatnot using it? Because it just wasn't working out, neither the bench scraper. So, out of the three methods or the three tools, which one is easier? For me, it's just this spatula here. And I'm doing the same thing. This is chilled. And then I'm using the hot water to smooth it down, basically dipping your spatula in hot water and going around the cake for this smooth, beautiful texture, right? And I'm wiping down the board for any excess frosting, because we got to have that cake neat looking, right, when you put it on the table. Any excess frosting, and also for any water droplets. Now you see on the cake there, you see some little water droplets from using water on the spatula. And I just take the napkin. I want to say this napkin is Viva napkin. It has no type of design on it, so it won't imprint on your cake. If you use one with a design, it might. It most likely will imprint on your cake. Now I am putting in wooden dowels. You can also use big plastic straws. I just use wooden dowels and cut them down to size. The middle dowel I'm going to make a little bit longer so that it goes through my second tier of cake. That way it is held into place. Because if anyone has ever delivered a cake or picked up a cake and it's all wobbly, oh my God, it is so nerve-wracking, right? Driving with that cake and it's just wobble, wobble, wobble all over the place like a bobblehead. Nah. So when you put in these dowels, that will help with making it it doesn't move. I can turn this cake upside down, nothing would happen. And of course, with tall layers like these, you need dowels so that it doesn't cave in, especially when you're putting another layer on top. Once your cake is like over 4 layers of cake, I would suggest doweling it, and it just gives it a firm, solid foundation. I mean, who wants to spend hours on a cake just for it to fall off? And didn't that just go on there like butter? So I'm putting the top cake on now, and I'm going around the bottom. If you can see, there's like a little gap between the top tier and the bottom tier where the board is, because of course you keep your cakes on board. It's easy to move on and off and harder for it to go through the other tier too and crack and break. So I'm just taking the frosting, and both cakes are chilled. It is recommended to always have your cakes chilled so there's no fingerprints, dents, or anything. And if you saw me showing color, these are the colors I'm going to use to make this effect. Not really sure what this effect is called. I am going to look it up. I should know. Shame on me, right? But I would say like a tie-dye effect. So I'm using lavender. I'm going to be using a coral or peach color and a pink color because the original cake they showed me had a blue undertone and they didn't want a blue undertone. So that is why I decided to use lavender, which is very close to blue, because I didn't want to just have that pink and coral color. I wanted the cake to pop. I wanted it to be beautiful. I want when I walk into the room, my guests are in awe. Now I'm just sporadically using the colors and spreading them, spinning the cake, spreading them wherever I think it looks best. This is just up to personal preference. There's no rhyme or reason to this. I'm just putting them in different places. What I try to do so that the colors do not mash into each other, I smooth them down between colors, because what will happen is if you put them all on and then smooth them, then you will see the colors kind of bleed into the next. And I didn't want them to. This is not that type of, sometimes I do, but this is not the look I wanted for this cake. I wanted them to all look individually on there, that you can see them and they're their own individual color. So now you see me going back in with the pink, and I'm just using my spatula to spread it all around the cake. Look how beautiful this is already looking, right? And I'm just going around, and I found it easier to stack the cake and do it all at one time, so that way I can see what the whole thing looks like. And to me, it matches a little bit better. And once I do that, I chilled it a little bit. And to see that if it's chilled enough, you're going to just use your finger, lightly tap it. And if you're not having your finger indented in there, then you know it's chilled enough. And what I'm doing is I'm going back around with the hot water and I'm smoothing it out. So if you look at that top tier, what I've already started, you see how smooth it looks. The colors are also not bleeding into each other. They're their own individual colors. So that's the top tier, and that is smooth with the hot water method. And when I'm finished going around and I'm pleased with it, I go around a couple times. Then I'll move on to the bottom tier. If you see, I'm adding a little bit more color to the parts where I thought needed more color. After I was finished, I just went in and I put in some little dabs of color here and there to fill in some spots that I thought needed it. And then I'm just doing the same thing again around with the hot water, just using the hot water and smoothing this cake out so that it's, now you see how different it is. That part is textured, and then you see as I come around, see, smooth. So just smoothing it out. And as I said, if you do chill that cake either in the fridge or the freezer, it'll prevent the colors from bleeding into one another. Because if the colors do start to, if you do it without doing it the way that I use that method, the colors will start bleeding into one another, and then it'll start turning other colors, right? So um the pink going into the orange is gonna make it a different color. It's not gonna be like, you're not gonna see distinct pink and orange and purple, and you don't want that. For this cake, I wanted distinct colors. I didn't want it to start turning different colors. Now I am cleaning up this board, and I'm cleaning up all the excess water droplets off of the cake, also off of the board too. And I'm just going around, I'm looking at it. Now I'm making a carriage cake on the top, so I'm using the dome cake pan. You can either freehand carve out a circle, or you can use a dome pan, and I decided to use a dome pan. So I cut off the excess bump in the middle so that they can go together flat, and this is me crumb coating it. Now, I kind of estimated how big it was. I wanted it to be small, but I also did not want it to be this flat because, hello, what carriage is so flat? So the part that I took out of the middle, I put it on the bottom, because when you're doing cake baking, unexpected things happen, and you have to just come up with stuff at the end. So I'm crumb coating it to the bottom. I had already chilled the top part. I'm crumb coating it to the bottom to give it that height, and I'm satisfied with that height. If I wasn't satisfied with that height, then I could take more cake scrapings that I cut off and adhere it to it, or I could have just used fondant. You can even use Rice Krispie treats, and dare I say styrofoam. I don't like to use styrofoam on cake because I want everything to be edible. Come on, it's a cake. You want to cut through it and just eat everything. And here you see I'm leveling it off so that it's flat. So when I turn it back over, that it will sit and not move at all. And then I'm just crumb coating it around, and then I'll just pop it in the fridge to make it cool. Here I am putting fondant on it, and don't worry about the fondant looking too small, because as you start smoothing it around the edges, it won't matter. And to be honest, I didn't really do such a wonderful job smoothing it down. I just did the bare minimum because there was so much things that was gonna go on this carriage that it really didn't even matter to me if it had like little dents at the end. But you see me like smoothing from the top there and then pulling out at the end, smoothing, so that way it takes out those creases in line. And then you're just going around until all the creases in line come out. Now I'm going to use a pizza cutter. It's not used for pizza, just strictly cake on my end. And I am cutting off the excess at the end so it's easier for me to work with. And I'm just using my hand, not really much of the tool, but there is the tool that I use. I have to look for the name. I never know the name of anything in life. Oh my gosh. Not even my tools. But yeah, it's like a bench scraper. Nah, it's not a bench scraper. It's a smoother. Now here goes the finished look of the cake. I put some edible gold flakes, some edible butterflies made out of fondant, and there goes that carriage. Can you believe the carriage turned out to look like that? And as you see, there's so much details on it. Like I was telling you before, you can't even see any creases or anything like that. There goes a little baby, with a mole. Finish